Have you heard recently from your significant other that they're wanting to leave you or that they're asking or demanding for a divorce? How do you deal with these threats? Have you been threatened more often than not? How do you respond? And how do you make sure and be sure that you do not lose yourself and your identity in the process? Let's talk about that today. Hi friends, glad to be back today. And today I want to talk about these specific threats, the threats of leaving you, the threats of divorce, and what these threats really mean. Because I think oftentimes when you're on the receiving end of these threats, it can be overwhelming. You might not want a divorce. You might not want them to leave you. So oftentimes we respond and I don't want you to leave, I don't want you to go, pleading or asking them what you can do to make things better, right? And in that process of trying to make things better for them, you end up losing yourself a bit in the process, right? Because we're trying to give them things to get them to stay. We're trying to make them feel better, and we're giving in, losing our identity on a daily basis. And in that process, oftentimes more than not, we're sacrificing our personal values. When we sacrifice our personal values, remember, that's part of our identity. And I've talked about this on previous videos about how our values directly correlate to our identity. And when somebody's stepping over our values or we're allowing ourselves to sacrifice our values, we don't have any boundaries in the relationship anymore. And without any boundaries, someone can just walk all over us, right, in the process. And especially if we're feeling fear that somebody's going to leave us, we might give them all these things and acquiesce to all their demands, and in the process losing more and more of our identity because we're allowing them walk all over our values. Oftentimes, too, when somebody is threatening to leave, we begin to allow this manipulative, negative behavior around us more often than not. We're allowing it around us because we don't want them to leave. So sometimes they can be negative. They can be hyper overly critical of us. They can call us names, get angry with us, find all our faults, even some faults that might not even apply to us, and get mad and angry about those faults. And so we find ourselves placating that type of actions, and we placate that type of behavior, which cannot be very good, not only to the relationship, but also to our identity, but also our self-esteem. On a daily basis, working with clients, what I found is that when a client is dealing with these types of threats, threats that the significant other is going to leave them, divorce them, what have you, they end up doing things to kind of make the other person happy. So a lot of times they cut out some family members that the significant other doesn't particularly like. Maybe that's a mother or father, an aunt, an uncle, grandparent, what have you. They can also have a tendency of cutting out kids from a previous marriage that the significant other has problems with. So that can also play a big role. Ultimately, however, the friends get cut out first. So the person that has the signs and symptoms of BPD might find all the faults within the other person's friends. And so over time, that person cuts out their friends, they're cutting out their family, they're even cutting out children from a previous relationship, previous marriage, and they're creating more and more distance from that, right? And so all of a sudden, it almost feels as though you're on your own on this island, and you're on your own, you're away from everybody, you don't have support. Also because you don't want that person thinking that you're cheating on them, so you don't have any real alone time, so you're constantly there, but they're also constantly challenging you, telling you that they want to leave, that you're no good, that you're not a good person, that they want a divorce from you. So this can be very challenging because you've done all these things to get this person to stay, you've done all these things to try to make this person happy, but these things don't seem to be enough. So there's some questions that I want you to ask if you're going through this right now. How long have these threats been going on? And that's a big question. How long have the threats of getting divorced or leaving you, how long has that been happening? Because some of you may say, hey, it's the first time it's ever happened. It's never happened. We've had a long relationship. And that's one thing. So if this is the first time it's ever happened, what was the triggering point? Was there a specific trigger that happened that led to the desire to have the relationship break up? I think most of you are going to be in a different camp, however. I think most of you are going to be in the camp of this is constant. These threats have been around since the beginning of the relationship. I want you to take another step and think about this too. What is the cycle pattern of those threats? So is it every month? Is it every 2 days? Is it every week? I want you to start looking at the pattern of this because I think sometimes we live in the moment, which living in the moment is great. That's what we want. But we don't always look ahead of us or behind us and say, oh, okay, wait, 4 days ago she wanted a divorce. Oh, 7 days ago she wanted a divorce. 10 days ago she wanted a divorce. And here we go again. Nothing's really changed. Why am I feeling like I have to augment and change at all? Why do I keep feeling like I have to give in on something that seems to be, well, somewhat constant. Does this have anything to do with her mindset and where she is? And I'm saying he, she, doesn't matter. It could be a him or a her we're talking about here, but it's something that you really want to think about. The other question that I want you to ask yourself is that oftentimes when we get fearful about this person leaving us, we get fearful of them leaving us, we get fearful of being alone, right? And that's more normal, not necessarily healthy, but more normal for the human condition. But why do we keep acting in a codependent manner? So why do we keep giving in to somebody who wants to leave us? Isn't there some point where we put a line in the sand and if you want to leave, just leave? I mean, if that's what you want, I mean, if that's what you keep wanting from me, that's something that you have to eventually ask yourself, because I find that we keep going down this slippery slope, not seeing the past situations, not seeing the fact that somebody has threatened this over and over again. They keep getting more from you, so why wouldn't they? Think about it. If you train someone to keep doing this and it keeps working to their advantage, why wouldn't they keep using these threats to their advantage? Also, another thing I want you to think about, like I was talking before, what are the patterns? Are there certain triggers that pattern this behavior? Okay? Are there certain things that happen to your significant other that triggers it? Is it an insecurity factor, right? Because it can be hard, because sometimes you're getting some crumbs or some kudos about how great you are, and in the next moment you can be being told how a horrible spouse you are and how they never want to see you again and how they want to leave. And so this can be really challenging to also understand and to weigh, because we get emotionally invested in the relationship. So if somebody's singing our praises, we may feel really, really good about it, right? If somebody's telling us the opposite, though, and how horrible we are and what a bad person we are, we may feel really low about ourselves. So that leads me to the next point. We need to neutralize our emotional connection to these extremes. If I'm giving a lot of power to the person telling me I'm so great, what do you think is going to happen when the person's telling me what a horrible person I am? I'm going to also give that power as well. And so what we need to do is neutralize this, because we want to realize that what they feel about us really isn't about us. It's actually about them, right? So if they're feeling good about them, we're great. If they're feeling low about them, we're low. So I want you to start realizing that. And oftentimes when they're feeling very low, they want to leave. They want a divorce. More often than not, that's because of their insecurity, right? Because they don't understand why you're with them in the first place. Now remember, you can only build up somebody so much until they have to actually do it on their own. You can fill somebody up, but if they're not doing it themselves, it's never going to work, right? You're filling up somebody that doesn't see their value. And ultimately, if you keep telling them how great they are, they're going to think you're lying because they don't believe it themselves. So as you determine and begin to realize that there is a link between threats, so there is a time period between it, now you realize that it's happening more often than you probably really wanted to see. Because sometimes we just kind of push this under the rug because we don't really want to see all this all the time. But once we begin to see the pattern, we start having to ask ourselves a question. If this is happening more often than not, why do I keep getting fearful? Why do I keep getting worried when somebody's doing these threats that seem to be, well, they're not really going to hold water? The threats are based on their own thought processes, right? Because I find that oftentimes when somebody is saying, I want a divorce or I want to leave you, it's usually not based on what you've done. It's based on how they're feeling in their own mind. So if we can kind of turn this around and realize, okay, I am getting fearful and scared that my significant other wants to leave me and it hurts my feelings or it makes me sad or I'm fearful about being alone. I understand that we need to get right with ourselves about being fearful about being alone. And that's something that I work with clients all the time about, right? It's like how do we find security within ourselves and find that solid lifestyle and find that solid connection and identity no matter what. It's really helpful to start working on that while you're in a relationship, because we start building ourselves up when we start giving less and less to the other person as far as breaking our boundaries are concerned, right? We're still in a loving relationship and trying to be helpful, but we start realizing, okay, I got to take care of myself, my mind, my body, my spirit, to really be the best person I can be, right? And so that's very important. So I ask you, why are you still worried by these threats? Because what we need to do is neutralize our emotional response, like I was saying. And by doing that, it's saying, okay, I like when people say nice things to me. I like when my spouse says nice things to me. I'm not really happy when my spouse says negative or mean things or manipulative or kind of pointing out all my flaws. Even if some of those might not even be my flaws, it's really kind of hard to digest sometimes. So think about it. If we can step back emotionally a little bit and realize when that person's putting me down or threatening me, it's because of their own insecurities. I think we can begin to take a little bit of distance there, right? We also need to realize too that when somebody's raising us up or telling us that we're great, it's usually based on their own insecurities. Not the fact that you're not great, but it's usually based on their fear, right? So we have to understand that both of these responses are coming from the mental mindset of the person that is threatening you. And so if we can get some neutrality in this, we can begin to stop giving away our identity, stop allowing the sacrificing of our values, and start seeing the truth about this person really does have these cycle patterns because of their own mental mindset and their own fears. This subject matter is a very important subject matter to examine, and that's why I wanted to create this video today, just to put this information out there, because I think that when we understand something solidly, we're able to act not only appropriately, but able to safeguard and understand our emotions and feelings in the process. If this content was helpful to you, please give us a like. It allows us to know that we're connecting with you. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. You can also become a member on the channel for exclusive content. You can also become a member on my website for exclusive content. Just go to ashleyburgess.com and click on the top banner, and you can just sign up for free for video content. And also we'll be talking about new activities and things and opportunities that we'll be doing that we can actually put out there on that membership site and invite you to those upcoming events. In the comment section below, let me know. I mean, are you going through something like this right now? And how do you safeguard yourself with these types of threats? Or do you find that more often than not you're giving in to your significant other because ultimately you just don't want them to leave and you don't want to be alone? Please share this with anybody that you know might be going through this exact situation, because they could use the help and the knowledge, I'm sure, and know that they're not alone. Don't forget to live your true life.